Within the last hour, it's been confirmed that the Prime Minister Boris Johnson will face a vote of confidence in his leadership of the Conservative Party. That vote will take place between 6 and 8 o'clock this evening. There'll be a count straight away, with the result expected shortly afterwards. Only Conservative MPs will take part. The vote's been triggered by a threshold being met of at least 54 MPs writing to Sir Graham Brady, who chairs the Backbench 1922 committee, saying they no longer have confidence in Mr Johnson's leadership. Conservative MPs began to turn against the Prime Minister after revelations about gatherings held during COVID lockdowns. And the numbers gathered pace after Sue Gray's report into that Partygate scandal. We'll be talking to our political correspondent shortly, but first, let's hear Sir Graham Brady's announcement this morning.
Sure, I'm not making a statement. I've sent out a written statement. I'm really here to answer any questions you have on the process or procedure. I'll say what was in the written statement if it's helpful to you, which is simply to say that the threshold of 15% of the parliamentary party seeking a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister has been passed. Therefore, a vote of confidence will take place within the rules of the 1922 committee. That vote will take place this evening in the House of Commons between 6 and 8 o'clock, and we will announce the result shortly thereafter. There will be arrangements for proxy votes for any colleagues who can't be present in person in Westminster, and we'll notify colleagues of those arrangements in the near future.
Did you communicate the news directly to the Prime Minister? How did he react?
I'm not going to go into detail of that. I have followed the rules that we have in place. I notified the Prime Minister yesterday that the threshold had been reached, and we agreed the timetable for a confidence vote to take place, and he shared my view, which is also in line with the rules that we have in place, that that vote should happen as soon as could reasonably take place, and that would be today. I don't divulge that, but the threshold of 15% has been passed.
And when was the threshold passed?
It's slightly complicated because some colleagues had asked specifically that it should not be until the end of the Jubilee celebrations.
So did some of them post-date their letters so as not to interrupt the Jubilee?
I think that's not a bad description of what was taking place.
And that's when the threshold was breached?
Therefore, we reached the point where I could communicate with the Prime Minister yesterday, which I did, and as I said, he agreed with me that we should conduct the vote as quickly as we reasonably can.
Will the Prime Minister have a chance to address the 1922 committee before?
It's always an open invitation to the Prime Minister to come and speak to the committee, so if he wishes to, we will arrange that meeting this afternoon.
Have you put one in yourself, a letter?
I'm not going to answer that question, but I think technically it would be possible, but it would be a slightly odd thing to do.
Are you surprised at the speed with which Number 10 is moving? You've seen a few of these come and go, these events.
I'm not surprised by the speed. Our rules say it should be done as soon as is reasonable in the circumstances. When we held a vote on Theresa May's position in December 2018, we spoke the evening before and we held a vote the next day. So I suppose it's in line with recent precedent, and I think it's good for everybody to get these things out of the way as quickly and efficiently as possible.
How long could a contest actually take if there is one at the end of this?
I'm not going to speculate about leadership elections. We're holding a vote of confidence and it will take place today, and you will have a result this evening.
You mentioned lots and lots of speculation. Is there a feeling in the Conservative Party that it would be good to clear this up?
Well, a confidence vote obviously will provide a clear answer. The party will have confidence in the leadership or not have confidence in the leadership. That's the question that will be before my colleagues today.
And if he survives, can you confirm that he is safe for another year, or is there a possibility that the rules could be changed?
Technically, it's possible for rules to be changed, but the rule at present is that there would be a period of grace.
So that was the chair of the 1922 committee, Sir Graham Brady, speaking in the past hour, making that announcement. Well, let's have a look now at how Conservative MPs initiated this leadership challenge. At least 54 of the 359 Conservative MPs in the Commons, that's 15%, have written letters of no confidence to Sir Graham Brady. And a committee, that's the chairman of the party's 1922 committee, that's a committee representing backbench Conservative MPs. A vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson has been scheduled for this evening between 6 and 8 o'clock tonight, and Conservative MPs will vote in a secret ballot. Under current rules, if more than 50% of all Tory MPs vote against the Prime Minister, he's ousted and can't stand as a candidate in a new leadership election. If MPs vote in support, he can stay as party leader and Prime Minister, and the rules state that no new vote can be triggered for 12 months. But this morning, Sir Graham Brady acknowledged that Boris Johnson won't necessarily be safe even if he survives tonight's vote. He said technically it's possible for the rules to be changed. As we've been hearing, a spokesperson for Mr Johnson's office says he welcomes the opportunity to make his case to MPs. The former Treasury Minister, Jesse Norman, this morning said he no longer has confidence in the Prime Minister and has submitted a letter of no confidence to the chair of the 1922 committee. Mr Norman published a letter to Boris Johnson on Twitter, setting out his reasons for withdrawing support after backing the Prime Minister for 15 years. He said recent events meant that he can see no circumstances in which I could serve a government led by you. The Conservative MP also said Boris Johnson presided over a culture of casual law-breaking at 10 Downing Street in relation to COVID, adding, "To describe yourself as vindicated by the report is grotesque." A few moments ago, he spoke to my colleague Justin Webb on the Today programme and said Partygate wasn't the sole reason for his letter.
But the last few days, the publication of the Sue Gray report and of the Queen's speech have shown that actually the reasons why I'm very sorry that the Prime Minister, to say that the Prime Minister absolutely must step down now or be removed, is because we now have a clear picture of a much wider set of concerns. And they are not just about Partygate, although that is a concern. They are also about core policy issues, including Rwanda and Article 16 and the potential breach of the Northern Irish Protocol, both of which I think would be are illegal or potentially illegal. So you've got that. You've also got a deep concern about the way in which policy is being conducted, which is to create dividing lines and cultural war and political disagreement just at a time when we need unifying, inclusive, energetic, positive leadership. And of course, you also have the constitutional question, which is this gradual centralisation of power in number 10. And no one who understands our constitution could think that's a good idea. Our Prime Minister is not a president. Boris Johnson is not a president. And it would be a very serious mistake to consider him as such or to treat him as such.
Well, I just want to bring you something now. We've just got some breaking news in terms of a response to the news of the no confidence vote being held in the Prime Minister. A response from the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, who has tweeted a message of support for the Prime Minister. He says, from the vaccine rollout to our response to Russian aggression, the PM has shown the strong leadership our country needs, as you can see there on screen. He says, I'm backing him today and will continue to back him as we focus on growing the economy, tackling the cost of living and clearing the COVID backlogs. So that's the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, who's put out that tweet just in the past few minutes showing his response, his support for the Prime Minister. And he's not the only one who has come out in support, of course, and we'll be getting more response from various ministers as we get this news. And as you heard a little bit earlier, we heard from the Conservative MP Jesse Norman, who was explaining why he had submitted a letter of no confidence. But that response there in the past few minutes from the Chancellor, Rishi Sunak. Our political editor, Chris Mason, gave us his assessment of this morning's development.
So this is happening in turbo speed. Not only has the threshold been met, 15% of Conservative MPs writing to that senior backbencher Sir Graham Brady saying that there should be a vote of confidence in Boris Johnson, but a decision taken between Sir Graham Brady and Downing Street that they should get on with it. And the Prime Minister is keen to get on with it, to try and get it out of the way. There is confidence in Downing Street, in fact, across the party, including among sceptics of Boris Johnson, that he is likely to win the vote of confidence. But the bottom line is a vote of confidence in a political leader is never a good thing for a political leader, because even if they win it arithmetically relatively comfortably, politically it is damaging. The very act of it happening is damaging. And there'll be a number tonight where we know how many Conservative MPs would rather somebody else was the Prime Minister. And it's an anonymous vote, which means those who might not be tempted to say very much publicly because, you know, they worry for their own prospects, can still cast a vote against him in private. So the vote happening between 6 and 8 o'clock this evening. The Prime Minister will address Conservative MPs during the course of the day. As you mentioned, he has already been in touch with them. We'll have a result in the middle of the evening tonight, and Downing Street will hope they can put this behind him. But very, very rarely do leaders manage to be able to put votes of confidence behind them. They usually stalk them into the future, even if they win.